The ashes of hope. The galaxy was quiet, but it was not the quiet of peace. It was the silence of defeat, the kind of silence that follows after cities burn, after armies fall, and after people lose all hope. The stars still shone, but they shone over ruins. For years, the coalition of races had fought against the Dominion, a ruthless empire that conquered world after world. At first, the coalition believed they could win. They had fleets, weapons, and courage. They thought unity would give them strength. But one by one, their fleets were crushed, their worlds burned, and their courage faded on the edge of the Orion Arm. Commander Thales stood inside the broken command deck of a station that was half destroyed. The air was heavy with smoke, and sparks jumped from shattered wires. Around him, tired officers sat at their stations, their eyes hollow, their voices low. They all knew the truth. This was the end. Any word from the Western Fleet? Thales asked, his voice rough. "No, sir," replied a young officer, his face pale. "All signals ended 6 hours ago." Thales closed his eyes. He did not need more words. The Western Fleet was gone, just like the Northern Fleet, just like the Eastern Fleet. The Dominion ships now surrounded them like hunters circling dying prey. Outside the windows, the stars seemed darker, colder. The survivors whispered among themselves, "No one is left. No one can help us." For years, the people of the galaxy had prayed for a savior. They prayed that anyone would come and fight for them. But who was left? The oldest story spoke of humans, a species from Earth, once fierce, once unbroken. But those were only legends now. No one had seen a human fleet in centuries. Many even believed they had vanished, gone forever. Thales sat down heavily in his chair. His bones ached, his heart heavier than steel. He remembered the worlds that had fallen. He remembered the cries of children pulled into war. He remembered the faces of soldiers who fought with courage, only to be swallowed by fire. He whispered, "This is the end." His officers heard him, and none argued. There was no point. Their weapons were almost gone, their ships too damaged to fight. They could not run. They could not hide. All they could do was wait. In the dark hours of that night, the station shook. An officer cried out, "They're here!" Red lights flashed, sirens screamed weakly, and across the void the Dominion fleet appeared, hundreds of ships black and sharp, their weapons glowing like suns of death. The crew froze. Some prayed quietly, some gripped their chairs, others simply lowered their heads. The Dominion commander sent one message, cold and cruel: "Surrender or be erased." Thales stared at the screen, his hands clenched, his voice cracked as he spoke. "We cannot surrender. We will not beg." The enemy laughed, their weapons charged. The end had come. But then, in that last moment, something strange happened. A flicker appeared on the sensors. It was faint, weak, almost hidden. "What is that?" whispered the young officer. "A ghost signal?" Another asked. "No," said Thales, his eyes narrowing. "It is a transmission." The signal pulsed again, a rhythm, steady and strong. It was not Dominion. It was not coalition. It was something older, something forgotten. The officers stared. As the code repeated itself, a simple phrase in an old language, Terra rising. The word sent a chill through the room. Terra, the ancient name of Earth humanity? "Impossible," one officer whispered. "Humans are gone. They were destroyed long ago." Thales shook his head. "No, not destroyed, only hidden." His voice grew steady, louder. "This is not the end." Outside, the Dominion fleet closed in, ready to erase the last survivors. But deep inside the darkness, a shadow stirred, a shape so massive the sensors could barely measure it. The officers gasped as the screen filled with its outline. A single ship, silent, waiting, its hull black as night, its presence like a storm about to break, and on its surface, the mark of a forgotten world. Earth, hope, once lost, now burned. Again in their hearts, for the first time in years, Thales felt strength return to his voice. He whispered the words everyone feared to believe. "Humanity has returned." And across the dying station, across the broken fleet, across the ruins of a galaxy, the whisper spread, a whisper that would soon become a roar, the forgotten signal. The signal did not vanish. Instead, it grew stronger, repeating again and again. The phrase "Terra Rising" echoed through the broken command deck like a heartbeat, steady and defiant. Commander Thales leaned forward, his tired eyes wide. Around him, officers stared. In disbelief, some whispered, some shook their heads, but none looked away from the screen. It was as if the past itself had come alive. "Trace it," Thales ordered, his voice sharp. "Already trying, sir," the young officer replied, his hands flying over the console. Sparks fell from broken wires above, but the screen cleared enough to reveal coordinates. Far beyond the Orion arm, deep in abandoned space, there was movement. The Dominion ships outside were closing in, their weapons charging for the final strike. But the station's crew no longer stared at death, they stared at hope, fragile but real. Could it be humans? One officer whispered, almost afraid to say the words aloud. Thales did not answer at once. He remembered the old records, the ancient tales. Humanity was a race that had once fought the galaxy itself. They were fierce, too fierce, so much that others feared them. Yet centuries ago they had vanished, leaving nothing but myths. Some believed Earth had been destroyed in wars too great to be recorded. Others claimed humanity had hidden, retreating into the dark, waiting for the right time. Whatever the truth was, the signal now told them one thing. Humans had not died. "Commander," the officer at communications called out. "We are receiving another transmission." "Put it on," Thales said quickly. The speakers crackled, carrying a voice unlike any they had heard before. It was strong, steady, and calm. A human voice. "This is the Terran War Command. All who hear this, stand ready. Terra rises." The words struck the crew like thunder. They looked at one another. Some with tears in their eyes, hope, long buried, had returned. But the Dominion ships were not moved by hope. Their commanders laughed at the transmission. To them, humans were ghosts, too long forgotten to matter. One Dominion warlord sneered across the comms. "Empty words from the dead. We will erase you and your ghost allies in the same fire." His ships advanced, rows upon rows of black steel cutting across the stars. The end seemed certain once more, and then the void shifted. Sensors screamed as they detected something massive approaching. At first, it seemed like a distortion, as if the stars themselves were bending. Then the truth appeared. Out of the darkness came a ship unlike any other. It was enormous, a warship that dwarfed everything in the system. Its hull bore scars older than living memory, yet it moved with the precision of a predator. On its side was the emblem of Earth, a silver mark of a world most believed destroyed. The crew gasped. Some cried out in awe. The Dominion fleet froze for a moment, their advance halting as if the sight had stunned. Even them, more shadows followed, one by one. Warships emerged, silent and powerful. They came in formation, disciplined, unbroken, a fleet of giants returning from exile. Thales whispered the words that everyone felt but could not believe. The mighty fleet of humanity. The comms opened again, and the same calm human voice spoke. "Stand fast, allies of Terra. The war is not yet lost. Humanity fights with you." The Dominion ships roared in response, breaking out of their hesitation. Weapons charged, their leaders furious at this sudden challenge. They had thought humanity gone, erased forever. But now, the ghosts of Earth had returned, and they carried vengeance in their wake. The first clash was brutal. A single Terran warship fired, and an entire Dominion cruiser line vanished in a blaze of fire. The sound of railguns echoed across the void like thunder. Beams of plasma lit the darkness like dawn. The station crew watched in awe, their screens filled with light and fire. Humanity's fleet moved with precision that was terrifying. Each ship seemed to know its place, each strike landed without mercy. Still, the Dominion was vast. Their fleets were endless. They swarmed, pouring out ships from every direction. The humans faced them head-on, never retreating, never bending. Can they hold? One officer asked, his voice trembling. Thalos stood tall, his heart beating fast. "They are not here to hold," he said. "They are here to change everything." The battle raged on, and the signal of Terra continued to pulse through the void. It was not just a message, it was a promise that humanity had not abandoned the galaxy, that they had returned in its darkest hour. On every ruined world, survivors began to hear the signal. Miners hiding in caves, children trapped on broken colonies, soldiers fighting with sticks and scraps, all heard the same words: Terra rising. And for the first time in years, across the wide galaxy, the people believed that hope was not dead. It had only been waiting in silence until humanity's mighty fleet could rise again. The return of Earth. The battle outside the station turned the void into fire. The Dominion fleet poured forward in endless waves, their weapons glowing red. Yet against them, the human ships moved like shadows, precise and terrifying. The first, Terran warship, had already destroyed an entire enemy line. Now more ships joined it, each one larger than anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. Their hulls were dark, scarred by battles long past, but their movements were sharp. Every cannon blast tore open Dominion cruisers. Every railgun strike split dreadnoughts in half. Inside the station, Commander Thalos and his crew watched in stunned silence. Their tired eyes, once filled with despair, now burned with awe. "This cannot be real," whispered one officer. "Humans. They were legends." "They are no legend," Thalos said, his voice steady. "They are here." The comms opened again, and the human voice thundered across the system, calm yet commanding. "This is Admiral Kira Vance of the Terran War. Command, to all surviving coalition forces, rally to us. Terra rises." The name carried weight even though none of them had heard it before. It was the weight of certainty, of leadership, the kind of voice that made soldiers stand taller and the broken feel whole again. The coalition remnants began to move, damaged ships dragging themselves into formation beside the Terran fleet. They looked like broken children beside giants, yet the humans welcomed them, positioning their massive ships to shield the smaller vessels. The Dominion was furious. Their commanders shouted across their own channels, ordering the destruction of these ghost ships. They unleashed everything, thousands of cannons blazing, but the humans answered with power unseen for centuries. Railguns roared, beams cut through the void, missile swarms burned through enemy lines. The Dominion ships exploded in fireballs, their formations collapsing like glass struck by hammers. On ruined worlds across the sector, survivors stared at the sky as the broadcast spread. Old legends whispered for generations were now alive before their eyes. Children pointed to the stars and cried out, "The humans have come." In the station, command deck, an officer grabbed Thalos's arm. "Commander, this changes everything. The Dominion cannot win against this." But Thalos shook his head, his gaze fixed on the massive Terran fleet. "Do not be so quick. The Dominion is vast. Their numbers are endless. This is only the beginning." Still, even as he spoke, his heart carried a fire he thought long-dead hope, fierce and unshakable. The Terran fleet pressed forward. Every move was perfect. Not a single ship out of formation. They fought as if they had been waiting for this very battle. And perhaps they had. For centuries, humanity had been silent, watching, preparing. Now they struck with purpose. A Dominion dreadnought, 3 times larger than the station, moved into position. Its cannons glowed, ready to erase everything. For a moment, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Then a single Terran battleship broke formation. Its engines flared like suns. It charged, ignoring the enemy fire that struck against its shields. At the perfect moment, it unleashed a storm of railgun rounds and plasma lances. The dreadnought cracked open, breaking apart in fire. The crew of the station erupted in cheers. "They are unstoppable," one officer gasped. "No," Thalos corrected softly. "They are human." The Dominion forces, shaken by the sudden losses, began to retreat. Their commanders tried to regroup, but panic spread through their ranks. They had mocked humanity as weak, forgotten, gone. Now they fled from them. Admiral Kira's voice came again across the comms. "Coalition forces, fall in line." This war is not over, but today we rise. Follow the signal of Terra, and we will show the Dominion that hope still lives. The words spread like fire, across broken fleets, across ruined worlds, across frightened hearts. The same thought repeated again and again. Hope is alive, humanity has returned. Deep in the void, more Terran ships emerged, carriers, destroyers, frigates, and ships so massive they blotted out stars. It was not just a fleet, it was an armada, a storm reborn. The galaxy trembled. The Dominion had never feared anyone, but now their ships retreated into the dark, desperate to escape the wrath of humanity's mighty fleet. And inside the broken station, Commander Thales stood tall, his voice strong again. He looked at his crew and said the words they all needed to hear. The galaxy thought we were finished, but Earth has returned, and nothing will ever be the same. The whisper that had begun in silence was now a roar across the stars. Terra rises. The first strike, the Dominion retreat, did not last long. Their commanders were ruthless. They did not understand fear. They only understood power. Within minutes, their ships regrouped into new formations, stretching across the stars like a steel wall. On the station, Commander Thales watched the screens as fresh Dominion reinforcements poured in. Hundreds more ships, perhaps thousands. His officers gasped, their short-lived hope trembling again. "They are endless," whispered one of them. But Thales shook his head, his eyes fixed on the Terran fleet. "No, they only seem endless." Admiral Kira's voice came through again, firm and unshaken. "Terran command to coalition forces, hold position behind us, we will advance." The words were calm, but the action that followed was thunder. Humanity's mighty fleet surged forward, their engines burning bright. Their formation shifted into a spear, sharp and unbreakable. At the very tip was a single warship larger than all the rest, its railguns glowing with power. The Dominion unleashed everything. A storm of plasma, lasers, and missiles filled the void. The galaxy itself seemed to tremble under the firestorm. The Terran fleet did not flinch. Their shields burned white, their armor groaned, but still they advanced. Then came the first strike. The leading Terran battleship opened fire. Railguns thundered, each round the size of a shuttle. Plasma lances cut through the darkness like lightning. A wall of Dominion cruisers disintegrated in seconds, exploding into a chain of fireballs. The station crew gasped, their eyes wide. One ship, just one ship, destroyed an entire line. Someone whispered. But it was not just one. The entire Terran spear formation struck as one. Every shot was timed, every move precise. Dominion dreadnoughts fell like prey before hunters. The coalition. Survivors could hardly believe what they saw. Their broken fleets had fought for years just to survive. Humanity had fought for minutes and already turned the tide. But the Dominion was not weak. They had ruled for centuries. Their commanders launched counterattacks. Hidden carriers unleashed swarms of drones. Massive artillery ships fired beams powerful enough to tear moons apart. The Terran fleet adapted instantly. Smaller human ships broke from formation, intercepting drones with pinpoint fire. Fighters launched from carriers in tight wings, moving faster than the eye could follow. The massive artillery beams were caught by reflective barriers, redirected back into Dominion ranks. The enemy's own weapons betrayed them. The Dominion warlord on the command channel roared in fury, his voice shaking with rage. "You think you can return and steal our stars? You will burn like the rest." Admiral Kira's reply was cold. "Humanity does not steal. We take back what was always ours. We take back hope." The battle raged on, and yet the humans never faltered. They moved as though they had waited for this moment for centuries. And perhaps they had. Inside the station, Commander Thales clenched the edge of his chair. His heart thundered in his chest. "This is not a battle," he whispered. "This is a message." His officers turned. To him, puzzled, a message? Thales nodded, his eyes burning. "The humans are showing the galaxy that they have returned. They are not fighting only for us. They are fighting so everyone will know." Outside, the Dominion fleet began to fracture. Ship after ship fell, their formations broken. Some tried to flee, Others fought in desperation. But the humans pressed forward, their discipline unshaken. One Terran ship, a massive carrier, pushed deeper into the Dominion line. Enemy fire slammed into it from every side, yet it did not fall. Instead, it released its entire payload. Thousands of drones shaped like knives of steel. They swarmed the Dominion ships, piercing hulls, cutting engines, leaving only drifting wrecks behind. The galaxy had never seen such fury, such precision, such unity. The Dominion, once feared above all, now looked fragile. On ruined worlds, survivors who watched the battle through stolen comms cheered. On mining colonies, voices shouted into the dark, "The humans have returned. The war is not lost." Still, Admiral Kira knew the truth. She stood on her command deck, eyes locked on the endless streams of enemy reinforcements. Her crew waited for her word. She raised her hand, her voice steady. "This is only the beginning." And as the Terran fleet cut deeper into the Dominion lines, as hope surged across the galaxy, one truth became clear. Humanity's first strike was not just a victory, it was a warning that the age of silence was over and the age of terror had begun. The enemy's terror. The Dominion had never known fear. For centuries they crushed worlds, silenced rebellions, and ruled the stars without challenge. But now, for the first time, their commanders hesitated. Their ships slowed, their voices cracked. On comms they had faced many enemies, yet none fought like this. The Terran fleet pressed forward, vast and unbroken. Every blast of their railguns shattered Dominion ships. Every strike from their plasma lances tore dreadnoughts apart. The void was filled with fire, wreckage drifting like burning bones. On the station, Commander Thales and his officers could hardly believe what they saw. The Dominion, the monsters who had destroyed whole civilizations, were running. Their ships broke formation, some fleeing into hyperspace, others scattering in blind panic. "They are afraid," whispered an officer, his voice trembling. "Yes," Thales said softly, almost in awe. "They finally know fear." The Dominion warlord tried to restore order. His deep voice roared across the channels, promising death for any ship that retreated. But fear was stronger than orders. His soldiers had seen too much. They had seen human warships move with precision like blades. They had seen entire fleets, erased in minutes, and they had heard the signal. Terror rising. The message spread faster than fire. Across captured worlds, across slave colonies, across broken armies, the whisper echoed. "The humans are back." On one mining world, a child hiding in tunnels looked up as the words reached him. For the first time he smiled. On another world, enslaved soldiers lifted their heads, daring to hope. Across the galaxy, sparks of rebellion flickered. The Dominion commanders raged. They sent desperate orders calling for reinforcements from the core systems. They promised their people that the humans would fall, but their voices no longer carried the same weight. For their enemies had returned, and their enemies did not break. Inside her flagship, Admiral Kira stood tall. Her eyes scanned the field, calm and sharp. "Do not stop," she commanded. "Press them harder. Make them remember who we are." Her fleet obeyed, cutting through the Dominion like a blade through glass. Their ships moved in silence. No cheers, no cries, only the steady rhythm of war. A Dominion commander tried one last stand, gathering a cluster of battleships. They poured everything into a single strike. Beams of fire that could have shattered moons. But the humans answered with a counterattack so fast, so merciless, that the enemy ships exploded before their final shots even reached their targets. The station crew erupted in gasps and cries. Their despair had turned to awe. Their awe now turned to belief. They were not watching a miracle. They were watching history, Commander, one officer said, eyes wide. "If humanity has this power, then the Dominion is finished." Thales nodded slowly, but he did not smile. "The Dominion will not fall easily. They are wounded now. But wounded beasts are the most dangerous still." He knew one truth. The galaxy would never again see the Dominion as invincible. Humanity had shattered that illusion in a single day. Across the Dominion ranks, panic spread. Ships collided as they tried to escape. Commanders shouted, but soldiers ignored them. Drones abandoned battle, their control signals cut, carriers fled, leaving fighters to drift in the dark. The fear grew into terror when the humans unleashed something new. From the largest Terran battleship came a weapon unseen for centuries, a gravity lance, a beam of compressed force that bent the very stars. It struck a Dominion super-dreadnought, twisting it like paper, breaking it apart without fire, only crushing silence. The galaxy watched in horror and awe. This was not just war, it was dominance. The Dominion's proud warlords, once feared, across the stars, now whispered to each other in secret. They were gone for centuries, one muttered. What else have they been building? If this is only the beginning, another said, his voice shaking, then we are already finished. On the station, Thales stood before his officers, his voice strong now. Remember this day, he told them. The Dominion thought fear was a weapon only they could wield, but now they taste their own medicine. Humanity has returned, and terror belongs to them. Outside, the Terran fleet slowed only to regroup, their lines perfect, their discipline unshaken. To the survivors of the galaxy, they looked less like ships and more like gods of war. And across the stars, on every world where hope had died, a new fire was lit. The Dominion still ruled, their armies still vast, but their mask of power was broken, because when humanity struck, they did not just win battles. They created terror. Terror that would grow, spread, and eat away at the Dominion until nothing remained. And this was only the beginning. The last gambit. The Dominion had been broken, but not destroyed. Fear spread through their fleets, yet their rulers still held power. The high warlords, ancient and merciless, gathered in their hidden strongholds. For the first time in centuries, they knew doubt. We underestimated them, one growled, his claws scraping against a table of steel. They should have stayed gone, hissed another. But now they return with weapons we cannot match. The oldest among them leaned forward, his voice low and cold. Then we do what we have always done. We gather everything and we crush them in one final blow. And so the order was given. From every Dominion world, fleets poured out, dreadnoughts, carriers, drone swarms, artillery ships, even war machines that had been locked away for generations. The galaxy trembled as the Dominion prepared their last gambit, the largest armada ever assembled. On the battered station, Commander Thales and his crew watched the reports, their eyes widening in horror. "Sir," an officer said, his voice shaking, "they are gathering everything. This is not a fleet. It is an ocean." Thales's jaw tightened. His eyes turned toward the vast Terran ships outside. Then humanity will need to face them head-on. Admiral Kira already knew. She stood tall on her flagship, her face lit by the glow of endless data streams. Her crew looked at her, waiting. She spoke only once, calm and steady. "Signal all ships. The Dominion has chosen their last gambit. We will answer." The Terran fleet reformed, stretching across the stars in perfect lines. Their carriers released wings of fighters, their massive warships primed, their railguns. Their gravity lances hummed with deadly energy. The void shook with their presence. The Dominion armada arrived like a storm. Their numbers blackened the stars. Thousands upon thousands of ships, enough to crush entire sectors. The galaxy watched, billions holding their breath. For a moment, the humans seemed outnumbered. The Terran fleet looked small compared to the endless swarm before them, but numbers alone did not decide battles. Strategy, discipline, and firepower did. And humanity had mastered all three. The Dominion fired first. A storm of plasma and missiles cut across the void. Worlds shook under the energy. Stations trembled. The Terran shields flared white, bending under the pressure. Shields at 70%. A human officer reported, calm despite the chaos. "Maintain course," Admiral Kira commanded. Her voice was steady, a pillar of strength. Then came the reply. The Terran fleet unleashed their full fury. Railguns thundered, missiles streaked, beams of plasma carved through space. Entire Dominion lines vanished in fire. Ships the size of cities cracked open like glass, debris scattering across the stars. The battle was chaos and beauty all at once. The Dominion charged with desperation, ramming Terran ships, unleashing drones in endless waves. But every wave met resistance. Human fighters cut down drones. Destroyers, flanked carriers, battleships shielded allies. On the station, Commander Thales watched with his crew. His voice broke into a whisper. This is no battle. This is war at the edge of everything. And then came the moment no one expected. The Dominion unleashed their hidden weapon, a massive warship older than their empire pulled from the depths of their core worlds. It was called the World Breaker, a ship so large it blotted out entire starfields. Its cannon was said to split planets in half. The galaxy froze. The coalition survivors gasped. If that fires, one officer stammered. Thales clenched his fists. It will erase everything. The World Breaker charged, its weapon glowing like a new sun. The Dominion roared, believing victory was finally theirs. But Admiral Kira did not flinch. Her voice cut across every Terran channel. All ships focus fire, break the beast. The Terran fleet turned as one. Thousands of weapons targeted the World Breaker. Railguns hammered its shields. Plasma lances carved into its armor. Missiles swarmed its engines. The giant roared in. Silence, shaking under the storm. The cannon almost fired, glowing brighter, brighter, until it was like a second star. Then, at the last moment, a Terran gravity lance struck deep, crushing its core. The light collapsed inward. The World Breaker cracked, split, and shattered in a silent explosion that turned the void white. The galaxy erupted in cries of shock and awe. The Dominion had gambled everything on their weapon, and it had been destroyed. Admiral Kira stood firm, her eyes steady. This was their last gambit, she said, her voice echoing across the fleet. And it has failed. Now we finish this. The Terran fleet pressed forward, unstoppable. Their strike was not just victory, it was judgment. And as Dominion ships scattered, fleeing into the dark, one truth became clear. Humanity had broken the unbreakable. The war was not over, but the galaxy knew. The Dominion was dying, and Terra was rising. The dawn of a new galaxy. The World Breaker was gone. Its shattered remains drifted through the void like broken bones of a fallen god. The Dominion fleet, once proud and endless, was scattered, their formations shattered, their voices filled with panic. On the battered station, Commander Thales and his crew stared at the screens in stunned silence. They had seen the impossible. The Dominion's strongest weapon had fallen, and it was humanity who had broken it. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence was heavy, but it was not the silence of despair. It was the silence before a cheer. Then the voices rose. The officers shouted, survivors cried, and broken soldiers lifted their heads with hope burning in their eyes. They did it! One shouted. They destroyed the monster! Another cried, and for the first time in years the sound of joy filled a command deck that had only known sorrow. Across the galaxy, the signal spread faster than light. On ruined colonies, miners dropped their tools and wept. On broken worlds, enslaved families embraced each other. On hidden resistance camps, soldiers raised their weapons high. The word spread from voice to voice, from world to world. Terra rises. Admiral Kira stood on the bridge of her flagship. Her eyes scanned the field of wreckage, her face calm but fierce. Her crew waited for her command. She raised her voice, and it carried across every Terran ship, across every coalition survivor. This war is not over, but today the galaxy has seen the truth. Humanity has returned, and we will not leave until the stars are free. Her words became a promise, a vow sealed in blood and fire. The Dominion survivors fled into the dark. Their once mighty armada now only scattered remnants. They would regroup, they would plot revenge, but the terror that had taken root in their hearts could not be erased. Fear was now their companion. In the coalition councils, the once broken leaders rose to their feet. Their voices were no longer trembling. They looked to the stars where the Terran fleet blazed with power, and they whispered the words their people longed to hear. Hope lives again. Commander Thalys stepped out of the ruined station, boarding a small shuttle that carried him closer to the Terran flagship. As he looked upon the massive ships, blocking out the stars with their size, he felt small, yet safe. He whispered softly, "You were never gone. You were only waiting." When he stood before Admiral Kira, he bowed his head, not in weakness but in respect. "You saved us," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Kira's gaze was steady, her reply calm. "No, Commander, we saved ourselves. Humanity may have struck the blow, but it was your people who held the line until we returned. This victory belongs to all who still believe." The word spread quickly, and in that moment, the Terran fleet was not seen as conquerors, but as guardians, protectors of a galaxy that had nearly surrendered to despair. The war was far from finished. The Dominion still had worlds, fleets, and armies, but the illusion of their invincibility had been shattered. The galaxy no longer saw them as rulers. They saw them as enemies who could bleed, enemies who could fall. And at the center of it all was Earth, a world long forgotten, now reborn as the heart of resistance. On distant colonies, children carved the words into walls. Terra rises. On warships, soldiers painted the human emblem on their armor. In secret across stars still under Dominion rule, slaves whispered the name of Earth as a prayer. A new dawn had come, not just for humanity, but for every race, every people who had lived in fear. They looked to the Terran fleet, vast and unbroken, and they saw not only war but a promise of tomorrow. As the Terran ships regrouped, their shadows covering entire worlds, Admiral Kira gave her final order for the day. "Signal to all worlds. Tell them what they must remember. Hope was lost, but hope has returned. Humanity fights. Humanity protects. Humanity rises." The message burned across the galaxy, carried on every signal, whispered in every home, shouted in every camp, and so the age of silence ended, the age of terror began.